Part 1. The morning sun of Kethvar cast long shadows across the ancient ruins as Dr. Zixithala carefully brushed dust from another stone tablet. Her 4 arms worked with practiced precision, each hand holding a different tool. The Vorthan archaeologist had been working on this dig for 3 months and today felt different. The tablet beneath her delicate touch seemed older than anything she had found before. Another one, she called to her assistant Brechtal, who was documenting findings 20 meters away. This script looks like old Galactic, but it's much more ancient than anything in our databases. Brechtal's tentacles swayed with excitement as he approached. The young researcher had joined this expedition hoping to make his mark in xenoarchaeology. So far they had found the usual artifacts: pottery fragments, tool remnants, and basic settlement markers. Nothing that would change their understanding of ancient galactic history. But this tablet was different. Zixthala's translation device hummed as it analyzed the carved symbols. The ancient text appeared on her screen, but the translation came through in fragments. Words like forbidden, death world, and terror appeared scattered throughout the incomplete text. Most concerning was a phrase that kept repeating, terra mortis. What does that mean? Brechtal asked, peering over her shoulder. I'm not sure yet, Zixthala replied, frowning at her screen. The translation matrix is having trouble with this dialect. It's older than anything we've seen before. But terra mortis, that translates roughly to death ground, or land of death. While the 2 scientists worked under the alien sun, far across the galaxy, a very different scene was unfolding in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the podium, representing her species for the first time as an official member of the galactic community. The human woman looked small, compared to the massive beings that filled the amphitheater-style chamber. Some council members towered 3 meters tall, others resembled walking trees, and a few existed as energy patterns contained within crystalline structures. On behalf of humanity and the planet Earth, I want to thank the Council for accepting us into this great community of worlds, Sarah said, her voice carried throughout the chamber by universal translators. We look forward to sharing our knowledge and learning from all of you. The response was polite but distant. Most council members saw humanity as another harmless species joining their ranks. The preliminary reports described them as bipedal mammals from a water-rich world. Their technology was adequate for space travel, and they seemed peaceful enough. Nothing remarkable about them, really. Council leader Vashati, a being that resembled a cross between a tree and a crystal formation, spoke in response. We welcome Earth to our community. Your species application has been approved and you may begin establishing trade relationships and cultural exchanges immediately. Sarah smiled, showing her teeth in what humans considered a friendly gesture. Several council members noticed the pointed canines, but assumed they were for processing plant matter. Many herbivore species had similar dental structures. We're excited to share our world with you, Sarah continued. Earth has such diverse life forms. Many of us keep companion animals, dogs, cats, horses. They're wonderful additions to our families. The council members nodded politely. Companion animals were not uncommon among peaceful species. Usually they were small, docile creatures that provided emotional comfort. After the ceremony, Sarah met with various ambassadors in smaller groups. The conversations were pleasant and routine. She talked about Earth's blue oceans, green forests, and the variety of animals that lived there. She mentioned how humans enjoyed outdoor activities like hiking, swimming, and mountain climbing. Everything seemed perfectly normal to the galactic diplomats. Just another nature-loving species joining their community. Back on Kethvar, Dr. Zixthala made a breakthrough. Her translation matrix had finally processed enough of the ancient text to provide a more complete reading. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The tablet wasn't just a historical record, it was a warning. The text described a world so dangerous that ancient galactic civilizations had declared it off-limits. This world, Terra Mortis, was inhabited by creatures so deadly that they had formed impossible relationships with other lethal beings. The tablet spoke of apex predators that somehow lived peacefully alongside the dominant species. Brechtal, come here, Zixthala called, her voice shaking slightly. I need you to double-check this translation. Her assistant rushed over, his excitement visible in the rapid movement of his tentacles. As he read the translation, his color shifted from bright yellow to deep purple, a sign of fear among his species. This can't be right, he said. It says the inhabitants of Terra Mortis bonded with killer beasts. That they lived alongside creatures that could destroy them, but somehow made them into companions? Zixthala nodded grimly. Keep reading. It gets worse. The tablet described how these beings were so adapted to death and violence that they required constant challenges to remain stable. They would seek out dangerous situations voluntarily. They would climb impossible heights, dive into deadly waters, and engage in combat with each other for recreation. But why were these tablets hidden here? Brechtal asked. Kethvar is nowhere near the galactic core worlds. I think these tablets were meant to be found eventually, Zixthala replied. Look at this section here. It talks about a time when the inhabitants of Terra Mortis would reveal themselves to the galaxy, when they would join the community of worlds. Both scientists stared at the translation screen as the implications sank in. We need to contact the Council immediately, Zixthala said. If this Terra Mortis is real, if it still exists. She activated her long-range communicator and connected to the archaeological database maintained by the Council. Her request was simple. Search for any world that matched the description of Terra Mortis. The search parameters she entered were specific. A world with an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that would be toxic to most species, extreme weather patterns, and an ecosystem dominated by apex predators. A world whose inhabitants somehow coexisted with these dangerous creatures. The database search ran for several minutes. Then, with a soft chime, it displayed a single result. Planet designation: Earth. Species: human. Status: recently admitted to Galactic Council. Zixthala's forearms trembled as she read the match details. Earth's atmospheric composition would, indeed, be toxic to most galactic species. The oxygen levels were dangerously high. The weather reports described massive storm systems that would destroy most known structures. The biodiversity reports listed creatures that the database had flagged as impossible predator concentrations. But most terrifying of all were the cultural notes from humanity's application to join the Council. Humans reported living with domestic animals, including creatures called dogs, which the database identified as descended from pack hunters, called wolves. They mentioned cats, which appeared to be smaller versions of apex predators. They spoke casually of horses, which were massive creatures capable of crushing most galactic species. It's them, Brechtal whispered. Terra Mortis, the death world from the tablets. It's real, and they're already here. Zixthala sat back, her mind racing. The ancient warning spoke of beings so dangerous that they had been quarantined from the galaxy. But somehow, impossibly, these humans had convinced the Council they were harmless. They had been accepted as members of the galactic community. She looked at the tablet again, reading the final lines she had translated. When the children of Terra Mortis join the stars, they will bring either salvation or destruction to all who meet them. The choice will depend on how they are welcomed. The galaxy had already made its choice. Now they could only wait to see the consequences. As night fell over the Kethvar dig site, Dr. Zixthala made a decision that would change everything. She sealed the tablets in a protective case and prepared to return to the galactic core worlds immediately. The Council needed to know what they had really invited into their community. But first, she encrypted all her findings with the highest security protocols available. If she was right about Terra Mortis and its inhabitants, this information could either save the galaxy or destroy it. Part 2. Dr. Zixthala's ship arrived at the Council's Central Research Station 3 days later. She had spent the entire journey double and triple checking her translations, hoping she had made an error. But every analysis confirmed her worst fears. The tablets from Kethvar contained genuine warnings about Terra Mortis, and Earth matched every single description. The research station orbited the galactic core, a massive structure that housed the most advanced translation and analysis equipment in known space. If there was any mistake in her work, this facility would find it. Research Director Carl Hex greeted her at the docking bay. The elderly Zephyrian's crystal formations had dulled with age, but his mind remained sharp. He had agreed to personally oversee the analysis of her findings after her urgent message. Zixthala, you look terrible, he said, his voice creating harmonic resonances in the station's atmosphere. You claim these tablets reference a real world, not mythology? I wish they were myths, she replied, handing him the sealed container. But the evidence is overwhelming. Director, we may have made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They moved to the main analysis chamber, where the most powerful translation matrices in the galaxy waited. The tablets were carefully removed and placed under quantum scanners that could read every molecule of the ancient stone. As the machines worked, Zixthala pulled up her preliminary report on the main display. The comparison between the tablet, descriptions and Earth's data files appeared side by side. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the first comparison. The tablets describe Terra Mortis as having burning air that dissolves the weak. Earth's atmosphere is 21% oxygen. Most of our species would suffer severe poisoning within hours of breathing it. Kalhex's crystals flickered with concern. "Continue." The tablets mentioned storms that shake the ground and tear the sky. Earth's weather systems include hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes that regularly destroy large areas. Yet humans build permanent settlements in these zones and simply repair the damage when it occurs. The translation matrix beeped, indicating it had completed its analysis. The new translation appeared on screen, and both scientists fell silent as they read. The text was even more disturbing than Zixthala's field translation had indicated. "The children of Terra Mortis bond with death itself," the ancient script read. "They take the greatest killers of their world and make them guardians of their young. The pack hunters follow them like lost cubs. The great cats purr at their touch. Even the crushing beasts carry them upon their backs with gentleness." Kalhex manipulated his control interface with trembling crystal appendages. "Show me the cultural files on humanity's companion animals." The data appeared instantly. Images of humans with dogs flooded the screen, creatures that were clearly descended from apex predators but somehow showing affection toward their human companions. Photos showed children playing with animals that could easily kill them, while the creatures seemed to be protecting the small humans. "These dogs," Kalhex said slowly. "Our biological analysis classified them as domesticated pack hunters. We assumed it was an error in translation." "It wasn't," Zixthala replied grimly. "The tablets describe exactly this. Humans somehow convinced wolves, pack hunters capable of bringing down prey many times their size, to live in their homes and guard their children." More images appeared. Cats sitting calmly with human families, horses carrying humans on their backs, even more exotic animals living peacefully in human settlements. Each image confirmed what the tablets had warned about thousands of years ago. "But how is this possible?" Kalhex asked. "No species in known history has achieved true domestication of apex predators. The psychological and biological barriers are insurmountable." Zixthala pulled up another section of the translation. "According to this text, the inhabitants of Terra Mortis didn't just survive on their death world, they became its ultimate predators. They were so successful that other apex predators began to recognize them as the dominant species." The implications were staggering. Every companion animal humans had casually mentioned was actually evidence of their species' incredible predatory success. They hadn't just tamed dangerous animals, they had convinced entire species of killers to serve them voluntarily. "There's more," Zixthala continued, activating another display. "Look at human recreational activities." The cultural files showed humans engaging in activities that would be considered insane by most galactic species. Rock climbing, where they scaled vertical surfaces hundreds of meters high; scuba diving, where they voluntarily entered environments filled with predators; combat sports, where they fought each other for entertainment. "They seek out danger," Kalhex whispered, "just like the tablets predicted. It gets worse. Look at this section about human extreme sports. Images of humans throwing themselves from aircraft, surfing massive waves, and racing vehicles at deadly speeds filled the screen. Each activity would be fatal to most galactic species, but humans did them for fun." "The tablets were right," Zixthala said. "They describe beings who require constant challenges to remain psychologically stable. Humans who grow up without sufficient danger actually develop mental health problems. They call it boredom and depression." Kalhex's crystals had dimmed to almost complete darkness. "We need to inform the council immediately." "Wait," Zixthala said, pulling up one final translation. "There's something else. The tablets don't just describe Terra Mortis as dangerous, they explain why it was quarantined." The new text appeared. "The children of Terra Mortis know not their own nature. They believe themselves weak, because they measure their strength only against their own kind. They do not understand that they are the nightmares other worlds tell to frighten their young. Should they ever learn their true nature, they may choose to become the very monsters the galaxy fears." Both scientists stared at the screen in horror. The ancient civilizations hadn't just quarantined Terra Mortis because its inhabitants were dangerous. They had hidden the truth from the humans themselves. "They don't know," Kalhex said slowly. "Humans don't realize what they are. Zixthala nodded. Think about their behavior since joining the council. Ambassador Chen has been friendly, curious, eager to learn. She's shown no signs of aggression or dominance-seeking behavior. Because she doesn't know she's an apex predator among herbivores, Carl Hex realized. To her, we're just other intelligent species. She has no idea that her mere presence terrifies half the council members. They pulled up recordings from the recent council sessions where humans had participated. Watching with their new understanding, the scientists could see details they had missed before. When Ambassador Chen smiled, she displayed canine teeth designed for tearing flesh. When she moved, it was with the fluid grace of a pursuit predator. Her eyes tracked movement with predatory focus. Even her casual gestures showed the controlled strength of a being evolved for violence. Most disturbing of all, the other council members had been unconsciously responding to her predatory presence. They spoke more quietly when she was near. They avoided sudden movements. Several species had instinctively positioned themselves near exits during her presentations. The prey responses were there all along, Zixthala observed. We just didn't recognize them. What do we do with this information? Carl Hex asked. If we tell the council, it could create exactly the situation the tablets warned about. If humans learn they're seen as monsters, they might become monsters. Zixthala considered this carefully. But if we don't tell the council, they'll continue, treating humans as just another peaceful species. And eventually someone else will figure out the truth. They worked through the night, analyzing every piece of data they could find about humanity. The picture that emerged was terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. Humans were persistence hunters, a rare and deadly evolutionary strategy. They could track prey across vast distances, wearing down much stronger and faster animals through sheer endurance. Their bipedal locomotion was optimized for efficient long-distance travel. Their cooling system allowed them to function in conditions that would incapacitate other species. But most frightening was their intelligence combined with their pack mentality. Humans were social predators who could coordinate complex strategies across large groups. They had conquered their entire planet not through individual strength, but through superior teamwork and planning. We're not dealing with simple predators, Carl Hex concluded. We're dealing with the most successful apex predator species in galactic history, and they've just gained access to space travel and energy weapons. As the galactic morning approached, both scientists reached the same inevitable conclusion. The council had to be informed, but carefully. The information had to be restricted to only the most senior members, and protocols had to be established to ensure humans never learned how they were perceived. The fate of the galaxy might depend on keeping humanity happy, peaceful, and completely unaware of their own terrifying nature. Dr. Zixthala prepared her final report, encrypting it with security measures that would make it accessible only to the council's inner circle. The subject line was simple but alarming. Priority Alpha, Species Reclassification Required, Earth Designation. Part 3. The emergency session of the council's inner circle convened in absolute secrecy. Only 12 beings in the entire galaxy possessed clearance high enough to attend. They gathered in a shielded chamber deep within the council's core station, where no signals could enter or leave without authorization. Council leader Vashati's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy as Dr. Zixthala presented her findings. Around the circular table, the galaxy's most powerful leaders listened in growing horror as the truth about humanity was revealed. The evidence is undeniable, Zixthala concluded, her forearms gesturing to the holographic displays surrounding the table. Humans are not the peaceful herbivores we believed them to be. They are apex predators from what ancient texts called Terra Mortis, the death world. Defense Coordinator Mektar, a massive being whose exoskeleton was scarred from countless battles, leaned forward. His species had evolved as warriors, but even he looked disturbed by the presentation. Show us their military capabilities, he demanded. Zixthala activated a new display. That's just it. We don't have complete military data because they haven't needed to demonstrate it. But look at their recreational activities and draw your own conclusions. Images flooded the display. Humans engaging in activities that would be classified as advanced combat training by most species. Mixed martial arts, which the humans described as sport, showed levels of violence and endurance that exceeded military standards for most galactic armies. They fight each other for entertainment, whispered Ambassador Kethmar of the hegemony. His tentacles curled with fear as he watched footage of human boxing matches. Look at how much damage they can absorb and continue functioning. The display, shifted to show human endurance events. Marathons where humans ran distances that would kill most species. Swimming competitions in conditions that most beings couldn't survive. Mountain climbing expeditions to heights where the atmosphere was too thin for normal life. They don't just survive in dangerous conditions, Zixthala explained. They seek them out deliberately. Their culture celebrates pushing their bodies to the limits of survival. Trade Commissioner Valen, whose species had been among the first to establish commercial relationships with humans, spoke up nervously. But they've been perfectly reasonable in all our dealings. Friendly, fair, eager to establish mutual benefit agreements. Because they don't know what they are, replied Research Director Carl Hex, joining the presentation. The ancient tablets make it clear. Terra Mortis was quarantined to keep its inhabitants isolated from the galaxy. More importantly, it was quarantined to keep them ignorant of their own nature. He activated a translation of the most crucial tablet passage. The children of Terra Mortis measure their strength only against their own kind. They know not that they are the darkness between the stars made flesh. The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. Humans thought they were weak because they compared themselves only to other humans. They had no idea that by galactic standards, they were monsters. We need to review every interaction we've had with them. Council, Leader Vashti decided. Look for signs we missed. The review began immediately. Diplomatic recordings from human council interactions appeared on the displays, but now viewed through the lens of predator-prey dynamics. Ambassador Chen's first address to the council showed disturbing details when analyzed from this new perspective. Her casual mention of walking the dog now carried terrifying implications. She was describing her species' practice of taking apex predators out for exercise as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Look at the body language, Carl Hex pointed out. Every time she mentions her companion animals, council members unconsciously shift away from her. Our prey instincts were already recognizing the threat. Defense Coordinator Mektar pulled up additional files. What about their reaction to our military vessels? When we sent the honor guard to escort their delegation? The footage showed human Ambassador Chen's reaction to seeing the Council's most powerful warships. Instead of being intimidated, she had seemed genuinely impressed and curious, asking technical questions about weapon systems and defensive capabilities. She was assessing our military capacity, Mektar realized. Not out of fear, but from a tactical perspective. No, Kalex corrected, studying her expressions more carefully. She was genuinely interested in the technology. Humans are naturally curious about potential tools and weapons. She probably had no hostile intent at all. She just wanted to understand how things worked. This revelation was somehow even more disturbing. Humans weren't scheming conquerors carefully analyzing galactic defenses. They were predators so supreme that they could casually evaluate military technology without any conscious aggressive intent, the way another species might admire art. Trade Commissioner Valen brought up economic data. Look at their trade proposals. They want to exchange what they call entertainment media for technology and resources. The files showed humans offering movies, books, games, and music in trade deals. The content had been deemed harmless by council reviewers. Simple stories and recreational activities. Pull up some of these entertainment files, Council Leader Vashati ordered. What appeared on the displays made several council members physically recoil. Human entertainment was filled with violence, conflict, and danger that would be considered psychological warfare by most species. Their action movies depicted levels of destruction and combat that exceeded most species' worst nightmares. They watch this for fun, Valen said in horror. Violence and destruction that would traumatize most of our populations is considered relaxing entertainment by humans. Even their children's stories contained elements that would be classified as horror by galactic standards, fairy tales about humans defeating monsters, surviving deadly situations, and overcoming impossible odds through violence and cunning. But notice the themes, Dr. Zixthala pointed out. In almost all their stories, humans are the heroes. They fight monsters, not other humans. They protect the innocent and defeat evil. Their entertainment reflects a species that sees itself as protectors, not conquerors. Defense Coordinator Mektar wasn't convinced. Predators always see themselves as justified. The question is what happens when they realize they're surrounded by prey. Ambassador Kethmar raised another concern. What about their expansion plans? They've requested colony rights to several systems. The list of human colonial targets appeared on the display, and the assembled leaders stared in shock. Every single world humans had requested was classified as uninhabitable by council standards. Class X death worlds with extreme conditions, dangerous wildlife, or toxic atmospheres. They're asking for worlds we use as prison planets, Mektar observed. Places where we exile our worst criminals because nothing can survive there long term. To humans, these are probably pleasant vacation spots, Kalhex said grimly. Remember, they evolved on Terra Mortis. What we consider uninhabitable hell worlds are likely just reminders of home to them. The scope of human danger became clearer with every new revelation. They weren't just apex predators. They were apex predators from a world so deadly that it had produced the most successful killers in galactic history. And somehow, they had maintained their predatory capabilities while developing advanced intelligence and social cooperation. There's something else, Dr. Zixthala said, activating her final display. The tablets mention that Terra Mortis inhabitants have one weakness. They form emotional bonds with other species. She showed footage of humans interacting with various council members during diplomatic functions. Despite the unconscious fear responses of other species, humans consistently showed kindness, patience, and genuine interest in learning about other cultures. They're trying to be friends with us, she concluded. Every interaction suggests they genuinely want positive relationships with other species. They're not acting like conquerors. They're acting like a social species seeking acceptance into a larger community. Council Leader Vashati's crystals pulsed thoughtfully. So we have apex predators from a death world who somehow evolved empathy and cooperative instincts. They could destroy us all, but they'd rather be our friends. The question is how long that will last, Defense Coordinator Mektar said. What happens when they realize we see them as monsters? What happens when they figure out that we're afraid of them? The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood the implications. If humans learned that the galaxy feared them, it could trigger exactly the aggressive response the Council was trying to avoid. But keeping the secret meant living with the constant knowledge that humanity could end galactic civilization whenever they chose. We need protocols, Council Leader Vashati decided. Immediate implementation of policies to keep humans content, engaged, and completely unaware of how we perceive them. What kind of protocols? Asked Trade Commissioner Valen. Cultural exchange programs, scientific collaboration projects, exploration opportunities that channel their obvious need for challenges into safe directions. Vashati's form pulsed with determination. We give them everything they want. New worlds to explore, new challenges to overcome, new friends to make. We keep them happy and busy. Ambassador Kethmar raised a tentacle. For 3 weeks after the secret council session, Dr. Zixthala made another discovery that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Working alone in her laboratory, she had been analyzing fragments from the deepest layer of the Tu, Kethavar dig site when her translation matrix detected previously hidden text. The stone fragments contained words carved so faintly they had been invisible until subjected to quantum-level scanning. What she found was the final portion of the Terra Mortis warnings, text that had been deliberately obscured by the ancient writers, as if they had feared to write it clearly, even in their secret records. The translated words appeared on her screen, with devastating clarity. The children of Terra Mortis are not content with mere survival. They create challenges where none exist. They seek to test themselves against impossibility itself. When their world no longer provides sufficient trial, they will turn their hunger for struggle toward the stars. Zixathala's forearms trembled as she continued reading. The ancient text described how the inhabitants of Terra Mortis would voluntarily seek out the most dangerous situations possible, not for conquest or resources, but simply to prove they could survive them. She immediately connected to the human cultural database and began cross-referencing the tablet's predictions with actual human behavior. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Humans had a concept they called extreme sports, activities that served no survival purpose and provided no material benefit. They threw themselves from aircraft with only fabric to slow their fall. They descended into underwater caves where a single mistake meant death. They climbed vertical ice walls in freezing temperatures just to prove they could do it, but it went deeper than recreational activities. Human history was filled with expeditions to places no rational being would go. They had sent explorers to both poles of their planet, where the environment was so hostile it killed most who attempted the journey. They had climbed the highest mountains on Earth despite death rates that would be considered unacceptable by any other species. Most disturbing of all, when humans finally achieved space travel, their first instinct had been to send missions to the most dangerous places they could find. They had landed on their moon, an airless wasteland bombarded by radiation. They had sent probes to planets with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and surface temperatures that would melt most known materials. They're explorers by nature, Zixthala whispered to herself. But not normal explorers. They're drawn to the most dangerous places in the universe. She pulled up the list of star systems humans had requested for colonization. With her new understanding, the pattern became terrifyingly clear. Every single system contained hazards that would challenge even the most advanced galactic civilizations. One system orbited a pulsar, bathing any planets in deadly radiation. Another contained worlds with gravity fields that would crush most life forms. A third system had planets locked in perpetual volcanic activity that reshaped the surface every few years. To the Council, these had seemed like reasonable requests, giving humans access to worthless systems that no one else wanted. But now Zixthala understood the truth. Humans weren't asking for these systems because they were all that was available. They were asking for them because they represented the ultimate challenges. She activated her secure communicator and contacted Research Director Carl Hex. Director, I need you to come to my laboratory immediately. I found something that changes everything. Carl Hex arrived within the hour, his crystal formations already dim with worry. What have you discovered now? Zixthala showed him the new translation, then pulled up her analysis of human behavior patterns. It's not just that humans are apex predators, she explained. They're apex predators who become psychologically unstable without sufficient challenges. When their environment becomes too safe, they actively seek out danger. What are you saying? I'm saying that no matter how comfortable we make them, no matter how peaceful our society is, humans will eventually need to test themselves against something dangerous. The question is whether we can provide them with challenges that don't involve conquering other species. Carl Hex studied the data with growing alarm. Show me their historical expansion patterns. The display shifted to show human colonization of Earth. Starting from small tribal groups, humans had spread across their entire planet within a few thousand years. But they hadn't stopped at habitable areas. They had pushed into deserts, frozen wastelands, high mountains, and isolated islands. Every biome on Earth, no matter how hostile, eventually contained human settlements. They don't expand for resources or territory, Zixthala observed. They expand because expansion itself is a challenge. They push into new areas to test their ability to survive there. And now they have access to an entire galaxy of new environments to test themselves against, Carl Hex said grimly. The implications were staggering. The Council had been thinking in terms of preventing human aggression through diplomacy and comfort. But if humans required challenges to remain psychologically stable, then a peaceful galaxy might actually be more dangerous than a hostile one. What happens to a species evolved for overcoming impossible odds when those odds are removed? Zixthala wondered aloud. They pulled up human psychological studies from the species' own databases. The data showed that humans who lived in environments that were too safe developed various mental health problems. Depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders were common among humans who lacked sufficient challenges in their lives. Even more concerning, human societies that became too comfortable historically developed internal conflicts. Without external challenges to focus their competitive instincts, humans would create competitions and conflicts within their own communities. They're going to get bored, Carl Hex realized. If we give them everything they want, if we make their lives too easy, they'll start looking for problems to solve, Zixthala nodded grimly. And the biggest problem they'll see is that they're surrounded by species they could easily dominate, not because they want to conquer us, but because conquest would represent the ultimate challenge. She pulled up the final section of the ancient tablets, the text that had been hidden most carefully. Beware the day when Terra Mortis finds peace, for peace is the enemy of their nature. In stillness, they will remember the hunt. In comfort, they will dream of struggle. Give them mountains to climb or they will climb over you to reach them. Both scientists sat in stunned silence as the full scope of the problem became clear. Humanity wasn't just dangerous because they were apex predators. They were dangerous because they were apex predators who required constant challenges to remain stable members of society. We need to contact the Council immediately, Carl Hex said. This changes our entire approach to human relations. Wait, Zixthala said, activating another display. There's one more thing. Look at this pattern in human behavior. She showed him data about human responses to various types of challenges. Physical challenges like climbing mountains or surviving in hostile environments satisfied them temporarily. Intellectual challenges like scientific research or technological development lasted longer. But the challenges that seemed to provide the most long-term satisfaction were social ones. Protecting others, solving problems that helped their communities, achieving goals that benefited people they cared about. They're not just seeking challenges for their own sake, she explained. They're seeking meaningful challenges. Humans are most fulfilled when their struggles serve a purpose beyond themselves. So we don't just need to give them challenges. Kalhex understood. We need to give them challenges that make them feel heroic. Zixathala nodded. The tablets mention this too. Terra Mortis inhabitants have a psychological need to see themselves as protectors. They want to be the heroes of their own stories. This revelation offered a possible solution to the human problem. Instead of trying to make humans comfortable and peaceful, the galaxy needed to provide them with meaningful challenges that channeled their predatory instincts toward positive goals. Exploration missions to dangerous systems, Kalhex suggested. Scientific expeditions to study hazardous phenomena. Rescue operations in hostile environments. Exactly. We give them the impossible tasks, the missions too dangerous for other species. We make them the heroes who do what no one else can do. They began developing a comprehensive strategy. Instead of hiding dangerous situations from humans, the Council would specifically recruit them for high-risk operations. Every time humanity showed signs of restlessness or boredom, new challenges would be provided. But it has to be real, Zixathala warned. Humans are too intelligent to be fooled by artificial challenges. The dangers have to be genuine and the stakes have to matter. Then we're talking about turning the galaxy's apex predators into its protectors, Kalhex realized. We make them our champions against the forces that threaten galactic civilization. It was a dangerous strategy. They would be deliberately placing humanity in positions where their full capabilities would be revealed. But the alternative, allowing humans to discover their predatory nature through boredom and frustration, could be far worse. There's something else, Zixathala said, pulling up one final piece of data. Part 5, the final emergency session of the Council's Inner Circle, convened in the deepest, most secure chamber of the Galactic Core Station. Dr. Zixathala's latest discoveries had forced a decision that would reshape the future of civilization itself. Council leader Vashati's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy as the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered around the circular table. The weight of what they were about to decide pressed down on everyone present. We have reached a critical juncture, Vashati announced. Dr. Zixathala's final analysis of the Terra Mortis tablets has revealed the full scope of the human situation. The question before us is no longer whether humans are dangerous. We know they are. The question is how we choose to handle that danger. Dr. Zixathala stood and activated the main display. The ancient tablets contain a prophecy that has proven remarkably accurate so far. It states that when the children of Terra Mortis join the galactic community, they will become either its greatest protectors or its ultimate destroyers. The choice depends entirely on how they are received. She showed the translated text. If welcomed as kin, they will die for strangers as they die for their own. If feared as monsters, they will become the monsters that fear created. The path to salvation and the path to destruction are separated only by the width of trust. Defense Coordinator Mektar leaned forward, his scarred exoskeleton clicking against the table. You're asking us to trust the most dangerous predators in galactic history to protect us. That's insane. No, Research Director Kalhex interjected. We're asking you to recognize that we've already made the choice. Humans are here, they're part of the Council, and they're going to discover their true nature eventually. The only question is whether they learn they're monsters or heroes. Ambassador Kethamar's tentacles writhed nervously. What exactly are you proposing? Zixathala activated a new display showing a comprehensive strategy. We propose Operation Guardian Protocol. Instead of hiding from humanity's predatory nature, we embrace it. We position humans as the Council's elite response team for situations too dangerous for other species. The display showed detailed plans. Human exploration teams would be assigned to the most hazardous star systems. Human researchers would study phenomena too dangerous for other scientists. Human military advisors would help develop defenses against threats too severe for conventional forces. We make them indispensable, Kalhex explained. Every time the galaxy faces a challenge that seems impossible, we turn to humans. They get the meaningful struggles they need, and we get protectors who are actually capable of handling galactic-level threats. Trade Commissioner Valen studied the proposals carefully. But this means revealing their capabilities to the broader galactic community. How do we do that without causing panic? Gradually, Zixathala replied. We start with small demonstrations. Rescue missions to dangerous worlds. scientific expeditions to hostile environments. Each success builds their reputation as heroes rather than monsters. Council leader Vashiti activated her own display, showing current galactic threats that the Council had been struggling to address. Look at our existing problems. The void plague spreading through the outer rim systems, too dangerous for our biological species to study. The collapsing star in the HFY system, radiation levels too high for any of our ships to approach. The rogue artificial intelligence in the abandoned Nexus stations, too unpredictable for our standard response protocols. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Every one of these problems could potentially be solved by humans. They're radiation resistant compared to most of our species. They have experience dealing with dangerous biological agents. And their adaptability makes them ideal for unpredictable situations. Defense Coordinator Mektar remained skeptical. What happens when humans realize they're being used as expendable shock troops for dangerous missions? They won't see it that way, Zixthala assured him. Human psychology craves challenges and meaning. Being asked to handle the impossible missions won't feel like exploitation. It will feel like recognition of their unique capabilities. She showed examples from human history, elite military units, specialized rescue teams, and scientific expeditions that deliberately sought out the most dangerous assignments. Humans compete for the right to take on high-risk, high-importance missions. They consider it an honor. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for immediate military action to contain the human threat. Others suggested subtle sabotage to prevent human technological development. But gradually, the wisdom of the Guardian Protocol became apparent. Ambassador Silka of the Peaceful Worlds Coalition spoke for the first time during the session. I've been reviewing our interactions with humans since they joined the Council. Every single contact has been positive. They've shown genuine curiosity about our cultures, offered to share their knowledge freely, and responded to our concerns with patience and understanding. She activated a display showing diplomatic records. Ambassador Chen has gone out of her way to accommodate our cultural sensitivities. When she learned that her companion animal made the Zephyrian delegation uncomfortable, she immediately made arrangements to house it elsewhere during negotiations. When the hegemony representatives mentioned that human music was too intense for their sensory organs, she personally curated a collection of gentler pieces for cultural exchange. They're trying to be good neighbors, Carl Hex added. Every behavior pattern we've observed suggests that humans genuinely want to fit into galactic society. They're not looking for dominance, they're looking for acceptance. Council Leader Vashati made the final calculation. The risk of turning humans into enemies by treating them as threats outweighs the risk of accepting them as allies. We implement Guardian Protocol immediately. The vote was closer than expected, but Guardian Protocol was approved by a margin of 2 votes. The galaxy had chosen to bet its future on humanity's better nature. Implementation began within days. The first test case was the void plague crisis in the Outer Rim. 3 star systems had been quarantined as the mysterious biological agent spread from planet to planet, killing everything it touched. No galactic species had been able to approach the infected worlds without immediate contamination. Ambassador Sarah Chen received the briefing personally from Council Leader Vashati. We have a situation that requires unique capabilities, Vashati explained carefully. The affected worlds are too dangerous for our biological species to investigate safely. Sarah studied the data with professional interest. The plague seems to target specific cellular structures that humans don't possess. We might be naturally immune, or at least resistant enough to gather useful data. The mission would be extremely dangerous, Vashati warned. We would understand if humanity prefers not to risk. When do we leave? Sarah interrupted, her eyes already bright with the prospect of a meaningful challenge. The human response was everything the tablets had predicted. Within hours of receiving the mission briefing, Earth had assembled a volunteer expedition team. The volunteers weren't conscripts or desperate individuals seeking payment. They were scientists, doctors, and explorers who genuinely wanted to help solve the crisis. Dr. Marcus Webb, the mission's chief researcher, summed up the human perspective. During his departure speech, the galaxy has given us a home among the stars. Now we have a chance to prove we deserve that trust by tackling problems no one else can handle. This is exactly the kind of challenge humanity lives for. The mission was a complete success. Not only did the human team prove immune to the void plague, they developed a cure that saved millions of lives across 3 star systems. The galactic community's response was overwhelmingly positive. Humans were seen as heroes who had stepped forward when no one else could. More importantly, Humanity's reaction to their success confirmed the Guardian Protocol's wisdom. Instead of demanding recognition or special privileges, the human team immediately volunteered for the next dangerous assignment. They had found their place in galactic society as the specialists who handled impossible problems. Over the following months, similar successes followed. Humans explored the radiation-soaked ruins of ancient civilizations, retrieved critical data from environments too hostile for other species, and developed solutions to problems that had been considered unsolvable. Each mission reinforced humanity's reputation as protectors rather than predators. The galaxy began to see them not as terrifying monsters, but as reliable allies who could be counted on when situations became desperate. Dr. Zixathala watched these developments from her laboratory, monitoring both human behavior and galactic reactions. The strategy was working better than anyone had dared hope. But the true test came 6 months after Guardian Protocol's implementation, when Ambassador Chen received an invitation that would determine humanity's ultimate fate in galactic society. The Council would like to offer Earth a permanent position as Director of Crisis Response, Council Leader Vashati announced during a formal ceremony. This role would place humanity in charge of coordinating all galactic responses to emergency situations. The offer was unprecedented. No single species had ever been given such broad authority over galactic security matters.